So my guest today is Lucy Liu. She's a life coach, unshakable optimist, a woman empowerment workshop facilitator, motivational speaker, and now makes it her passion to help other women rewrite their life story. She also inspires as a host of her own weekly podcast called The Lucy Liu Show. And so she is here to share the story of her first time being a podcast guest. So I really can't wait to hear all about that and how it triggered for her, opening up her life up to the public and stepping out of her comfort zones. All right, Lucy. So tell us first, how long ago was this and how did the opportunity cross your path?
Well, first of all, Anne, thank you so much for having me here today. And to be honest, this is my first Facebook Live with someone else. I've done it myself. I've done it in other groups, like by myself, but this is the first time I'm actually having a fun conversation. So thank you for the
All
opportunity.
right. So
And
that was my little, I gave somebody a first dance.
yes, exactly. And yeah, so I was thinking, wow, there's all these first times. And it just came to mind that my first time on another podcast was actually exactly almost a year ago. My first episode aired in April, I think 15th or so. So that was exactly a year ago. And it's been so different since then.
Okay.
And it,
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
So that's so yeah, you've come a long way because you went from being a first time guest to having your own show. But
Yes.
let's talk about though. So what show was it on? How did you get invited? How did this even cross your path?
So it was a show called The Tao of Self Confidence. And my business coach, she was invited on the show and she was like, oh, I have a client who's perfect for this as well. And she knew at the time that I was looking into possibly wanting to be on other podcasts, but I felt like I wasn't ready. Um, I felt
Why
like
was that?
I think as women, we never ever feel that we're ready. There has been a study shown that men usually take action when they feel 70% ready for something, and that women usually don't really take the jump or take the leap unless we feel 100% sure. And I think
Yeah.
in my case, I would have to feel at least 150% or 200% sure, right? So that's how we're programmed to be. But
Well, I think I'm one of those very rare cases where I constantly jump in head first when I'm completely not ready. And
right.
and I have no problems with that because I know that I'm going to make the best out of anything that comes my way and there's nothing like just jumping in and just doing it. But I think that's from me growing up having constantly having that mindset. And I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I grew up in a men's world, so there was no, if you hesitated, then you lost the opportunity. So there's no room for a hesitation. But
Yeah, but the
yeah,
beauty
that's
of it is that we change. And my
exactly.
of course my mindset changed too. And when I launched my podcast, I knew nothing about podcasting. I knew nothing, but I felt like I wanted to do it and I just jumped in. So it takes practice and our mindset controls all of that. And as we shift our own mindset, it's actually a moment to moment shift. And so I am a life coach and I help my clients shatter their limiting beliefs and right we do transformational work, and at the same time I'm also transforming myself. So
Yeah.
we're all these little, I guess, caterpillars and we're all transforming into butterflies, and that's just a process, and it goes it's not just a one day process, it's a lifelong learning process.
Yeah. So let's go back to that first episode. So did your coach push you over and say, "Hey, just go ahead and do this," or how did you finally get yourself prepared and said, "Yes, I will do this"?
To be honest, she just asked me, here's an opportunity. Are you in? And I said, yes. So I just said yes. But of course, inside, we always have those little voices, right? Telling us, oh my gosh, are you ready? I wasn't ready. I felt like I didn't have a story to tell. Like I didn't have a story lined out like which part of my life do I want to talk about? Because there's so many things I could talk about, right? So it was really actually to think about what stories we have. And the more I think about it, the more I realize. And as this whole past year went, I've been featured in over 40 podcasts, I believe. Um, the more I give reflection and thoughts, the more stories I'm able to tell. And I think what's important is that I need to stop thinking about myself, like what stories that I went through, but uh, come from a place of serving, like serving the audience, like what value can I bring them? Like what story can I tell to inspire them to take action? And that's my purpose. Like I want to make a contribution, like a positive contribution to this world, right? Even if one listener were to take something away from what I said and took that and really made it useful, that would make a difference in the world. And that's where I came from.
All right, that's really great. And it's very true. Everyone has stories to tell and it's our own, like we hold ourselves back from telling the stories. Like for me, like I started out by reaching out to my families and friends. I'm like, "Hey, come tell a first time story." And it's like, people just lock up and they're scared to do it. It's like it's just going to be us having a conversation. I mean, sure, it's live on Facebook and people can tune in, but ultimately it's, I want to hear your first time story. Like I'm very interested in it. And people really, they either go blank or they get worried, like I don't have a story to tell. And I'm like, it doesn't matter any first time. You've had so many first times in your life. Uh, just come on and tell one of them, and it doesn't have to have big massive meaning. It's just sharing something about who you are through a first time story. And it's been challenging to get people to come on. It's much easier for people that, like yourself, if you've done 40 other podcasts, you're more used to doing this and you've grown comfortable. But your first time, you're admitting it, your first time, you were not comfortable with it and you just did it. And it's so much easier if you can do it with a friend, if you can do it with somebody that and you know that they're going to encourage you. And if you get stuck, they're going to help you out. But I think you also mentioned that you had some hesitation as far as just sharing, like opening yourself up to the world. Because when you tell story, you tell details about your life, you're becoming more vulnerable to the public or whoever might hear it. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, yes. I think there's all these things going on in our brain, right? Other than being not ready. And also, like, do people want to hear my story? Like, do they even care? It's like, is it is it even important for them to listen to? Or what would they think of me? Or, I mean, as we do anything new or old, I think even people who have done Facebook lives for like 10 years, they still talk about how their stomach kind of have butterflies right before they hit that button, right? So it's all mindset, right? How you go into it. And to be honest, I was very lucky. I feel truly blessed that my first podcast interview was actually pre-questioned. And that's actually very rare. Like for now, I don't pre-question my guests. And most of the podcasts that I'm on, it's not pre-questioned. So I was very lucky. So I knew exactly what I was going to ask. So I kind of already went over what I'm going to say. Um, but it's still a scary process to start. But of course, maybe after 10 interviews, I'm like, oh, this is so fun. Let's just like jump on it. I'm like, I really look forward to hopping in a call and just have a fun conversation. And it's either talking about my story or, just sharing what I've learned along the way, anything that's just really human connection. And we are having a human connection, even though we're miles apart, but we're still connected by the internet, right?
Yeah.
So it's really fun process. And I think it goes along with many first times. Like if we just give it practice, it becomes so much more fun and you're going to rock at it.
Yeah, I mean, I have, so being the master of first times, I have studied first times, intense details. And, one of the things about first is to realize that the first time is the toughest and it gets easier as you do it. And some first times you'll do, you might have your first interview and you hate it.
Mhm.
and then you don't want to do it again. And so you definitely have to explore what that's all about. Like, why did you hate it? And if it is because you stepped out of your comfort zone and you really don't want to do that, then you might want to go ahead and keep doing it because of that. But you might also just do it and you just don't like it. And then nothing says you have to do it again. Like people, I think one of the biggest fallacy that's still being spread around is that when you start something, you have to finish it. You don't.
Mm.
If you don't like it, you don't want to do it, then don't do it. Understand, if there's growth value in it, then you might want to continue to do it. But there's nothing wrong, when I tell people like just, try new things and they're like 365, new things. That's a lot. I'm like, yeah, the majority of the stuff you might never do again, but you will have been exposed to it. That's like the point of it, is getting that exposure. So tell us then about your starting your podcast. How did you make that shift to, okay, now I want to actually have my own show?
So I would have to say, coming back to what you just said, I started having so much fun. Like, um, obviously the 10 first uncomfortable podcasts, like every time I get off the call, I'm like, oh, I should have said that. Oh, why didn't I say that? Or when I listen to it on, on Spotify or Apple, I'm like, oh, I said too much. I said, or like you're always like criticizing yourself, but you know what? But that's our own criticism. But then I start hearing other people when they hear it and they're telling me, oh, Lucy, your voice is so nice. I'm like, oh my God, I hate it. Right. So it's like we are our biggest enemies. And obviously, for me, it was a personal choice to start my own podcast. Is obviously I'm having fun conversations with people, and two, I am a life coach and I help people shatter their own limiting beliefs. And one of my biggest limiting belief was that my name was Lucy Liu, and another one was that my English isn't good enough. Like, this is what I always tell people. I'm like, yeah, even though I graduated from UCLA, yeah, I've like grew up in Los Angeles, but I'm still the child of an immigrant. I always felt like my English is not my native tongue, so it's not perfect. So I wanted to shatter my own glass ceilings. And I think that was one of the reasons why I started my own podcast, to shatter both of those limiting beliefs. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to own my name and show up in confidence because I preach confidence. So I have to embody that version of me and just call it the Lucy Liu Show. And I'm going to stop worrying about what people's going to think, like, or people think like I'm not the Lucy Liu, but you know, whatever. I'm doing my part in making this a better world. Whoever needs to hear my message, they're going to hear it and take it and inspire. And I actually have um, two people reach out to me and message me and decided to start their own podcast after listening to mine. So I'm like, hey, I've done my job.
Yeah. So what was your first episode like? Did you have a guest or did you do a solo show?
So the first episode I did solo, I told my story of being confident and living up to my name and why I started the podcast. So that's what I shared in my first episode. And then so I now alternate between, I do one solo and then probably 3 interviews. And it's a fueling station for your mind, business, and life. So I talk about business strategies and also mindset stuff.
What was being on the other side? What was having a first guest like?
Oh, first guess. Yes, it was actually very interesting because, like I said, I wasn't really ready for a podcast, but I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna do it. So I told myself, you know what? I'm just gonna randomly like message some people on Instagram and ask them to be my guests. And then if she says yes, that means my show is a go. So that's exactly what I did. I messaged some girls and she said, yeah, they were twins. So, and they said yes. I'm like, okay, let's do it. And in the process, because I've been on a bunch of shows, and then I already had a list of people who I wanted to interview. But the interesting part was like, it was so hard to schedule, like, you think they said yes, but it was like I had trouble scheduling them. So, and then it was again, I reached out to someone that I was connected with on Facebook, but we were like strangers. We're like, just like, hey, like connecting, like, and she said yes. And she hopped on a call like right away. So she was like one of my early guests as well. So you just never know, right? But once you take that leap, there's always a way. And that's what I say. There's always a way. And I always believe there is a way.
Yeah. So my first guest on the 365 First podcast, I forgot to hit record. It was a great interview, but I will never get to hear it because I did not hit record. And I reached back out to him and I apologized and I asked him to come back, and he has not agreed to come back. So
Hey, those are the memories that we're going to talk about when we get old and sitting in our backyard.
yeah, after having thousands of episodes, I'm going to be like, yeah, well, I will never know what the first one was like. Well, that's great. All right, so let's shift over and let's play the first time lightning round. So the
Ooh.
way it works is I'm going to give you some potential first times. And if it's something you've done before, you say up. So if you were on the app, you would be swiping up. If it's something you've never done, not interested, then it's left. And if it's something you've never done but would like to do that you would add to your list, then it's right. Okay. Wear a wig.
Ooh, I've never done it, but I would definitely give it a try.
Okay. So that is a right. Go to a petting zoo.
Oh, done it, done it. You have
Yeah.
kids, you've done it.
I was going to say, I saw you had kids. Tell me, well, do you remember the first petting zoo?
Well, we have a local farmers market every Friday. So I think, yeah, they have a little petting zoo.
Okay. Go ziplining.
Oh, I haven't done that. I've tried the little baby ones at the park, but I would like to do like a full-on one. So
Full big ones.
yes,
That's all right.
definitely.
Okay. Take a ceramic class.
Ceramic class. My daughters have done it. I haven't. Mm-mm. Too many things on the list.
All right. Have you ever run out of gas?
Not myself, but I've had people around me, lots of people around me. I've had people like put diesel in regular cars and like a regular gas in diesel cars and the car breaking down. I've heard so many stories.
All right. But that has not happened to you.
Yeah.
All right. Take a belly dancing class.
Oh, no, I have not done it.
Would you do it?
Yes.
Oh, we
Yes.
are definitely making a good list for you. All right, so that is a right. All right, send cards to military members stationed overseas.
Ooh, that's a good one. I've sent cards, but not to what you mentioned. So
To,
that's an interesting one.
yeah,
Totally would do it.
easy one to knock out while you're having to stay at home.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Take a hot yoga class.
Oh, yoga. Yes, I've tried it.
You've done the hot yoga?
Not hot yoga,
Yeah,
but
so this,
regular yoga.
yeah,
Yeah.
so this is the hot yoga. Would you try the hot yoga?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anne.
All right. Eat Ethiopian cuisine.
No, I'm gonna say no to this one. Well, I am vegetarian, so I tried. Well, I would. Do they have good?
They
Do they have
do.
good vegetarian
Yeah.
choices?
Um, well, I've never had but their meals are so filled with lots of legumes and vegetables, and
Mm,
there's usually a meat in it, but I'm sure they have good vegetarian options.
mm.
How long have you been a vegetarian?
Since my daughter was born.
Oh,
It's pretty much like a gift I wanted to give her. Like, my husband used to have migraines, and after he became a vegetarian, his migraine naturally went away. And I used to feel a lot of fatigue, like by 5 p.m., like I just really need a nap. Like,
mm.
and after I became vegetarian, like my body just feels a lot healthier and a lot lighter, I would say. So, Yeah.
Okay. All right. So last one, ride a motorcycle.
Oh, I have tried it, like the scooter ones.
Scooter. All right. So next question is today's first time story prompt. And the story prompt is first time at an amusement park.
Ooh, I would have to say Disneyland because I mean, back in middle school and high school, I was in band, I was in orchestra, and being in LA, we always go perform at Disneyland. So I actually went
Oh,
to Disneyland for at least 4 times a year. Yeah.
really? Holy
Mm-hmm.
moly.
Yeah.
Wow.
I until I think up until I had my daughter, I never went to Disneyland because I got so sick of it. Like you would think, no, the magical place, no, but I guess just it kind of killed it for me because I went so many
So many
times. Like I knew
times.
exactly where everything was. Like, but no, after I had my daughter, I love going back. Like it's
Yeah,
different.
re-exploring it through
Right,
her eyes.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So,
It's much different now.
but what was your favorite ride?
Oh, uh, l- it's a small world after all. Like I can,
Really?
I'm not sick of that song yet.
Wow. I remember my first time at Disneyland and going through that. And I'm like, oh, I am never, I'm like, I'm never going through this again. And then I went to Disneyland in Japan. And the girl I was with, she's like, let's go on. And I'm like, I don't want to. Then I went back on it. And I appreciate the fact that it was in different languages. So I thought that was kind of neat. But I'm like, that's quite all right. I can go without that ride. All right. So the final question is how are you making the best of the situation with what's happening with the COVID pandemic?
Um, so when we went into COVID, my intention or well, obviously to be mindful and to be present with my family. I spent a lot, I mean, my daughter's out of school for the rest of the school year. So obviously she's my priority. I'm all about, I teach my clients time management. So obviously we time blocked her entire schedule in half an hour increments. And she's been really good with that. Like we've pretty much stuck to it. Like,
Yeah. How old's
uh,
your daughter?
she's 8, and yeah, we start the day with meditation, half an hour meditation, then we have half an hour reading, half an hour like, homework. So it was very structured, and by sticking to that structure, it's it's been a blast. I'm like, "Oh, okay, homeschool wasn't as hard as I expected because we made like from day one we made it that we need to stick to this calendar, right, in order for this to work. And so with that aside, then I can kind of schedule my work around her schedule, like when she's like, I started her on learning to type, like things like that, then she's typing for half an hour, then I have my time. um, so obviously I want to make an impact and help my business grow at the same time. So the intention I set was to increase my credibility and visibility. So I started applying to more podcast opportunities, and also I wrote last month. I wrote an article to Thrive Global, and it's on about the routines, my daily routines, to help me thrive for during the pandemic. And also I contributed an article to the Elephant Journal, where I talked about the mindset and the values and qualities that we need to embody in order to thrive during a pandemic.
Oh, well, that's great. Very good use of your time. And again, sharing your knowledge and your information with others and being in service to them. So, well, I appreciate you coming on the First Time Storytelling broadcast and having your first live interview type on Facebook this way. So, thank you.
Thank you for having me. Such an honor.